1, 2, 3, clap.
That's wonderfully not in time.
Let's just leave this in.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This is the cold open.
Yeah. We've never done a podcast, just the two of us.
It's new times.
It is new times. We probably should have waited for Ethan, but we're just going to do it anyway. Hello. This is a podcast about Bojack Horseman.
The best TV show.
Well, you actually recommended it to me on Mediate.
I did. Oh my god, that's so long.
I know. So that would have been back in like 2017, maybe. It was the episode was 2014, I think. And yeah, and you talked about Bojack. I think I watched it pretty much all of it in 2018. Rewatched all of it last year, and as of a few days ago, the final episodes have come out, so it's over.
Yeah. Damn.
So what do you want to do? Should we talk about the final season, and then we can talk about the whole show, or what do you feel like doing?
Should we go for like a quick overview of the season? A quick overview of the show, and then focus in on the season. Or actually,
I don't know. All right.
We'll just start with the first episode of this series, actually, and we'll just bring up any context that we need as we go along.
Sure. Okay. So this season was a weird one because it's technically 2 seasons, right? So it was 2 short seasons. So I guess we'll be referring to season 6, part 2.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a shame it didn't get to be like it's a whole season in its own right.
Yeah, okay. I think that's my first thought. I think that season 6 was very good. Obviously, time will have to tell if it's the best season, but it's very much 2 seasons. And I feel like the 5 episodes in both parts that kind of would have fleshed out a few more characters and given things a bit more time to breathe were kind of missed.
Yeah.
But that being said, I feel like from being told, hey, we're going to cancel you next season, they did a pretty good job at wrapping up the entire show.
Yeah. A show that focused as well on the whole sort of idea that nothing really ends. There's always the day after the happy ending, or once you hit rock bottom, there's another, you've never reached the end.
Yeah, it was always going to be hard to end Bojack Horseman.
Yeah. So I think, if it wasn't for a big sort of push being like, right, we're cancelling you at the end of this, it probably wouldn't have ever really gone in for an end, I don't think.
I mean, it's totally not related to the fact that the Tuca and Bertie and Bojack Horseman animators unionized or anything. That's got nothing to do with the fact they cancelled both those shows. Totally.
Completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Completely irrelevant.
But, yeah. I mean, I feel like Bojack could have ran for 7, 8, maybe even 9 more seasons, and we would have had new characters. But when they've kind of finally told the writers that, okay, this is it, you got to wrap it up, you realise just how much they have already introduced. There's an episode, I know, we'll jump around all over the place. The episode, the final episode of Part A, or Part 1, or whatever we're calling it, a quick one while he's away, just focuses on supporting characters. And I didn't realize how much I cared about so many of these people, Yeah.
It's a thing I found with the. I guess it's with the opening to each episode in this season, both parts. It sort of has a medley of all the kind of emotional moments in Bojack's life. It sort of makes me realize just how much there has been in the show. I guess the intros are more focused on Bojack's story, but still there's such a vast and rich cast of characters that go around.
It's really good.
Feeling that sort of earlier on with can't remember the season where he disappears at the end, and then the episode before he shows up again. That's another one that just focuses on the supporting cast and sort of showing how, well, at this point they're not the supporting cast, they're characters in their own right.
But like that episode, that the one episode 8 of season 6 takes it a step further by not even having Princess Carolyn, Todd, Mr. Peanut Butter, or Diane. It's just like Kelsey, Hollyhock. Who else was there? There were 2 journalist characters who kind of become a bit more pivotal. Who at first I genuinely disliked, but I was like, these are bad characters, but they won me over. Yeah.
It's because they felt so different to the rest of the show, especially with the kind of larger than life nature to them, which is weird for this sort of difficult to describe show that has moments like that. But I wasn't sure they'd fit in when they initially showed up, and they did pretty well.
Yeah, they definitely won me over. I feel like that episode was just a bit jarring. I was like, because okay, so BoJack Horseman has I think the reason it's continued for so long is because it's got this amazing structure to the seasons, where the 11th episode is always this incredible, like, one of the most creative things I've ever seen. It's always the culmination of like all the character arcs of that season, and like this it's always amazing. Like, it's always like that's like the best episode of the season by far. But then they always have the 12th episode be slightly calmer, slightly more like almost deliberately underwhelming, and just showing that even though everything's crescendo, kind of life goes on. They always do this every season, and I've seen a lot of people being like, episode 15 should have been the last episode, but that's not the show. I feel like if they'd ended with episode 15, it would have been, an amazing ending, but it would have kind of betrayed what the show is really about. You need that kind of finale, which is very, I don't know, less matter of fact and more kind of showing that life goes on.
Yeah. I think because initially when I was going through, I guess it's spoiler part now, I guess, with what the penultimate episode was. But like throughout all of that, I remember thinking when I was watching it that, if they just bring back Bojack after this will feel like it was for nothing, and I won't have liked that. And so my initial feeling when I was going into the final episode was, this had better just be the other people coping without him, and it wasn't that. But then sort of realised, well, no, it still was very good.
Yeah, I had the same thought process where I was so determined at the start of the episode that this is bad. I don't like this. But they kind of gave me what it's smarter than me, the show. Like, these writers, these creators, they know what they're doing. And I was like, okay, this is like what I didn't know I wanted this, but this is definitely the best way the show could have ended. And if you, I don't know if you did this, if you watch the full credits of 15, his heart rate kind of picks back up again.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, so I don't think he's dead.
They are bringing him back,
Yeah, but that episode 15 is quite something. I think instantly you kind of know what's happened, and like, as a fan of the show, they've played with the mythology of him drowning in his own swimming pool so much. Like, it appears in, like, I'd say every kind of other episode there's almost a reference to it or a piece of foreshadowing, and it's so obviously.
I mean, the introduction of the show is him falling into his swimming pool and looking up as he is sort of drowning or not swimming up, and then they've constantly been sort of bringing it up, even just the painting on his wall of the treading water. It's very much been a metaphor and just an expected thing, really.
Which is why I'm glad they kind of subverted it. But they had it both ways. Like, they essentially gave you 25 minutes to say goodbye to the character and to process death in this kind of incredibly comedic and tragic way. I mean, that episode is at some points the funniest, and at some points the genuinely saddest episode of the show, I think. And they let you say, kind of accept that Bojack is going to die, and then they pull that away from you. They go, we're not going to let him be a martyr. We're going to make him have to keep dealing with the shitty decisions he's made, because life's a bitch and then you die, but sometimes it carries on. It's a great final line.
Yeah. It's awkwardly sitting on top of a roof.
Have you seen this really bad theory that the final episode is actually just his last moments of consciousness? Because if you loop the final episode from the first and final shot, you can read it as just like a cycle. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
Because the first shot of the episode is them looking at the roof, and then it's a flat line. But I dislike this theory, but I guess it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just feel it is more powerful if he is still alive for the final episode.
Definitely.
And just sort of because it again brings up because he's always been sort of on this cycle that kind of keeps on getting worse usually for the most part, and so he's been looking like he's been doing better with his AA meetings and the rest of that, and like whilst he was going through sort of therapy and stuff like that, he had the support networks there that made it easy for him, and then back in the real world he then struggled again with the same sort of problems that kept on coming up, and his own, I guess it's sort of an exploration of his power and his powerlessness, because it's his narrative as a victim is always like, oh, I was powerless, I've got it's the drink that has a power over me, and so he's struggling for definitely the second half of this season, because he's realizing that, well, no, in a lot of these situations it was him with the power over these women, it was him who had the power to stop Herb from being fired.
I think the fact that there's like the third last episode of the entire show, they bring back Angela Diaz, the network executive who in season 1 told Bojack to fire Herb. It's just like that deep cut, but like they've perfectly identified like what perhaps the turning point of maybe his life, but definitely of the show, of the episode The Telescope in season 1 is almost where the show kind of reveals its full hand and like shows you what it's actually about. So I think bringing back that character was like a very interesting choice, but it really worked in that episode.
Yeah. I don't know, it was very interesting seeing them again, and their sort of the weird relationship they kind of had with Bojack there. I mean, it was just, I need you to sign this thing, but it was still.
But it's amazing how they can take these side characters who have very little screen time and just give them such depth, you know.
Yeah, it's just such a well thought out world.
It really is, yeah. And like I mean, this season is like as sharp as ever. It's as kind of deep as ever. But I think the fact it works is it retains that still level of silliness and just animal humor. It's got one of my favorite jokes, the joke about Christopher Nolan, the joke about lo-fi hip hop beats. I'm like, I feel like these were written for me, you know. Yeah, they both really made me laugh. And I think Todd is very key to kind of keeping the tone light. And I'm glad that he got that final moment with the Bojack where they kind of summarize the character. It's like, are you smart or dumb?
Yeah. Well, I loved that. Also, just as well, the fact that, because definitely in the last half of the show, Todd has been sort of grappling with the fact of his relationship with Bojack, basically, and how negative it's always been for him. And so he's been taking space, and there's always been this kind of awkward feeling whenever he's in the same room as Bojack. But like their final scene being, well, just the bit before when it's Todd noticing that Bojack is in an awkward situation right now, and so comes up with a mad excuse for why Bojack has to leave. And I don't know, just and then Todd talking about that and sort of saying, yeah, well, I don't know, it's such a good friend moment. I just love Todd. Todd's great.
The show has the kind of balls to, I think is it the end of season 3, to have Todd just almost try and cut Bojack out of his life, and you see him kind of grow as an individual because of that. And I kind of really respect that the show just keeps that up. You know, it doesn't have the kind of sitcom problem where everyone's stuck in the same cycle of like fucking each other over, but then like kind of making up and being at the same kind of status quo. Like it's genuinely got changes in character development, and it's.
It's what I found very interesting was the kind of conversations between Bojack and Princess Carolyn sort of near the end, of Bojack sort of saying, no, the powerful story to tell your child is when you walked away from this. Like, this isn't your battle. And yeah,
I think another thing the show kind of does well, or started to do well as it got better towards the past season two, is it kind of showed more episodes from other people's point of view. Like I think alongside the last few episodes, last two to be specific, my favorite episode of season kind of 6-2, if we're calling it that, was the Diane episode. Um, and like I feel like in the episode, I genuinely disliked Princess Carolyn, who's like probably my favorite character, and like just seeing her through Diane's kind of eyes, you realize that like the way like certain attributes that kind of work for Bojack is just completely great against Diane's personality. Yeah.
yeah. And it's Diane's episode is very powerful, and it was one I think it's another example. I mean, I know she had a whole episode focusing on her, but I still feel like there's more of Diane's story that I feel was one of the things that could have been improved with more if the show had had more time.
It's a shame it was a little bit rushed. Yeah, I think if
because it got her whole sort of arc mostly done, well, or one of her arcs really done in that episode of sort of being like, all of my suffering has to have been for something, and then realizing at the end that no, that's not how life works.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have just got to go for what makes you happy, and sometimes there isn't some great message there or great story or anything.
I really loved the animation kind of styles in that episode, and it kind of it's almost it's her trying to write, and they express that kind of brilliantly through images, and then the contrast of like her trying to write her kind of deep sad memoirs versus the kind of the light detective story she also wrote.
Yeah.
I thought that was great, and it's good. Mr. Peanut Butter was the character that probably got the least. Like the fact that they literally had Pickles break up with him off screen, I think was a very meta acknowledgement of the fact that they're having to rush things.
Yeah, because that's Mr. Peanut Butter. Because they were sort of implying, we have something interesting to do with him this season, but then they didn't have the time.
Yeah, I think the first half of season 6 had a lot of kind of peanut butter stuff, but especially with the surprise episode. But I like where they left that character. I think you have to keep the tone light, and it's good that they kind of didn't have him in a relationship, and that he finally is seeking therapy and has found success in Birthday Dad. That throwaway joke from like season 3 about buying the rights to like a birthday card.
Oh, it's just so good. Sad dog.
Alright. How much more do we have to say about season 6? Do you want to talk more about the ending or the fucking episode that just becomes Synecdoche, New York?
Yeah. So with A View from Halfway Down.
Oh my god, the poem that takes the title.
That's what I'd say. Poem is fucking brilliant. I think that was when I was particularly feeling that I kind of didn't want. I don't know. I felt like it would go against some of the message of the poem in a way if he was still sort of alive at the end, because it's sort of this idea of not having the time to make the changes. But I guess then it's better than actually that he does then have the time after sort of, I guess, having that thought. Or such a powerful poem, that one.
And it's almost, I was slightly disappointed that we never got to see like Butterscotch, or like it's almost like I do like the fact that he can't, even in like his last moments of life, he can't imagine his dad telling him he loves him. It's really sad. He has to imagine him through the lens of Secretariat.
Yeah, a sort of a false father figure.
I did kind of think maybe they just can't get John Krasinski to come back and do the voice of Secretariat, so they found a workaround. But I think emotionally it did work, that they kind of meshed the characters together.
It did, yeah. My feeling was, I feel like that episode could have been longer.
Yeah, it's the kind of sense of dread you get throughout the whole thing. Though I don't know if it felt like an hour for me, because I was like, fucking hell, no. Like, just the inevitability that everyone has to just go into this black void, and like all of their final performances are kind of moving, bottom Zach breaths.
Yeah. But it's just the conversation they're having around the sort of dinner table, where it's like, what what is it to have had a good life?
Mm.
Like that, like they raised quite a few points, but I feel like that to me could have been longer, because that's one of the things I found really interesting. And again, like the performances, like before this big black void that swallows them up.
Yeah, like Sarah Lynn's song, which is the reprise from that great
Mm.
moment for season 5. So it's almost like a counter note to it. I love how they got Lin-Manuel Miranda back to do not Butterscotch. What's his name? Crackerjack.
Crackerjack, yeah, it's so weird to see his name in the credits, being like, oh, he was in this.
Yeah, it's.
Uh,
I mean, the voice cast has always been great, but Will Arnett in this season is
Yeah.
kind of it's the best he's been. Doing that interview,
Yeah.
it's like, God. I mean, that interview is like, it's because at this point, as the audience, like you're like, okay, Bojack doesn't deserve for that first interview to go well. So you're kind of happy he's getting caught up, but you're also like, it's difficult because you still have some empathy for him, and you're like, he deserves what's coming to him, but I want him to accept this. He's pushing back too much. He needs to.
Yeah. You've seen him have a good life, or at least a good semester.
Yeah, because you want because you know he's better now, and he just turns back to the character that he was. He just immediately regresses, and the way he like throws the hairdresser under the bus, Rhonda. It's kind of like, I don't know. The second he gets defensive, you just see the old Bojack. But I think this season's it's nuanced. It's not like they show that like everyone hates Bojack, and like rightfully so. But then they show that kind of in his isolation, he's the only people he can really interact with or really gets any kind of positive feedback from him are just worse people who have also been outcast, like Lance Wagner.
Yeah. I found that because I was worried initially that it would be almost like too sympathetic to the sort of like
cancel culture.
The bad people in the hashtag Me Too sort of stuff. So it was like, but it did, it really walked a fine line with that and did a good job of being sympathetic to all involved, I feel.
It's because it's a nuanced take, because it's like he can't just stop existing. He has to exist in the world somehow, but he also probably doesn't deserve to work again.
Yeah,
and like
it's sort of
you go on.
Just presents it all sort of really well without kind of saying, oh, this is what needs to be done, or this is. It sort of kind of accepts there is no solution to this and sort of goes, we've got to live the next day.
I love how they dealt with the Hollyhock situation. I can see some people thinking it'll be rushed, but just never actually showing us the letter. It's like they cut the audience out just as Hollyhock's going to cut Bojack out of her life.
Yeah, that's such a powerful moment. Just when he calls her for the final time and it's sort of saying, oh, this number is, I can't remember whatever exactly it says, but then it's sort of like, oh, all ambiguity is gone now. That's it with their relationship.
And the season, the kind of season cliffhanger that we had to wait a few months for was Hollyhock about to find out, and then you can kind of, it never tells you, but you assume she found out, and that's why she's kind of keeping her distance from Bojack. But it never spells any of this out for the audience. It kind of, I liked that. Yeah. Alright, so should we talk about Bojack Horseman as a whole before we kind of finish? What do you want to do? Should we go season by season?
Yeah, that's good. Actually, though, I've got one. What do you make of Princess Caroline and Judah?
I think the way they did it was really. I mean, I didn't see it coming, but because I do quite like just when a piece of media just displays like good working relationships between people and it's not a romance.
Yeah.
But I think the expression of love was like a very Judah thing. Seeing Judah's hair finally was funny. It totally works. I think they'll have a very functional relationship. They kind of found someone, Princess Carolyn, who's Princess Carolyn's equal in that regard.
Yeah. Because I was sort of surprised and not initially sure, but they do manage to twist what felt like more of a platonic good work relationship into like, I can see they both do love work. Kind of is like a mutual interest as well. And the way he does sort of arrive back at the end of part A,
Oh yeah,
is
that's a
quite
brilliant
triumphant.
reveal. Yeah.
Ah,
I mean, that unionization story, kind of following like knowing BoJack got cancelled and like the supposed reason, it was like that was a very satisfying kind of storyline. I feel like a lot of the political stuff with especially the Diane episode in part A or first part was really kind of on point. Like really kind of not just like oh, Orange Man bad, brilliant political humor, but it was like genuinely like yeah, these are the problems in the world and like there's no solution, so we're just gonna make a joke like the rich guy who's like, oh yeah, I'm legally allowed to kill people.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. It's the big corporation, and you can't resist.
I remember when I first started watching BoJack Horseman, talking to you, and you were like, "Season 1 is bad." I'm like, oh, I hate it when people say that. But what do you think now? Do you think it's bad?
See, I do like season one. For a while, I don't know. I feel like when I first came to the show, I got hooked by the comedy and the humor because it was sort of like um, I don't want to say like Family Guy, but
It
like
is.
it was that kind of
Yeah.
that sort of humor, the like cutaway gags, and I was like, oh yes, I like these shows. I like this. Um, so I feel like quite a few people um, sort of come to it the other way around. If they're just like, it's when the emotion starts hitting in that they're like, ah yes, this is. I had to sit through the rest of it to get to this.
But
Um,
yeah, it's kind of the original point and still the point by the end, but it's a bit deeper. Is always it's a sitcom about sitcoms, isn't it? It's kind of
yeah,
writers who
yeah.
grew up on sitcoms kind of constructing a character whose entire life was like being raised on these TV shows. And I feel like it's more of like the entire season is very cohesive. They knew they were going to get a second season, so they played the game of let's play this straight for a while and then kind of bring in some of the like deeper stuff a bit later.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, because it does work really well. And yeah, the sort of the way it kind of hits you watching through it again. But this is a while ago now, and just it's in the Say Anything episode, so the one before the telescope, where you're following Princess
Mm.
Carolyn, and it ends with her like calling Bojack after he's gone through the events of the telescope, and you know what has happened there. It just sort of suddenly hits you all of the emotions that are coming up really in the show, and just it's such a powerful moment going through again. And yeah, it does feel like that's really when the series came into its own then.
I think they definitely laid the seeds to a lot of stuff. Like a lot of the stuff with his parents is in the first few episodes, and you have a Sarah Lynn introduced
Mm.
like right at the start as well. It's kind of they obviously it obviously isn't just like a Family Guy that became deep. There was always the depth there. I think we both agree. I think the episode season 3, the underwater episode, is when they were like, okay, we can like really go out there with the kind of stuff we're doing.
Yeah, 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 which they really leaned into. Well, I mean, just in all upcoming seasons, really. But it sort of went from that being the first kind of artsy episode they had to there being sort of three like that in the fourth season.
Yeah. What do you think of the? Have you changed your opinion on the underwater episode?
I feel like I should have, but I haven't.
Because it's still like one of my favorites, maybe my favorite. I love the fact that the entire episode is him being unable to kind of express how he's feeling and kind of find the words to give to
Mm.
Kelsey, and they do that with this underwater episode. And the music is so nice, and it's like lost in translation. It's so good. Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, I think I don't enjoy the music style quite as much. I don't think.
it's like the Uncut Gem
Um,
soundtrack.
uh,
Just
but yeah, so yeah, I think I enjoy all the ideas around it, and I enjoy what it did for the series. But it just felt, for a long time, it felt so disconnected from the rest of it, and that it didn't really. It felt very much like a contained arc that happened throughout that episode that didn't affect anything
yeah, I can
later.
definitely see that. There's a joke in the 60s season where he writes that he blew up a taffy factory as one of his bad things.
Yeah, yeah, I
I always
saw
thought he
that.
never got that never came up again. But so do you prefer season 2 or season 3? Because I think season 2 is like a more solid season. But the highs of season 3 for me, like that one, the episode that's set in 2007, um, kind of the season finale and the Sarah Lynn episode kind of are so good. I almost, when I was rewatching it, I kind of forgot how, not weak, but how kind of it kind of jumps up and down in quality season 3.
Yeah, because that was one of the ones where, well, with their, is that the one where they sort of went into kind of gun control stuff,
Maybe,
or is that?
I think that might be
Wait,
season 4. Yeah, season 4 is the.
no, yeah, that's season 4, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but I thought, I, I don't know. This definitely has the uh, bigger high points than the season 2.
Yeah, definitely. But I think season 2 with him running away and going the whole Charlotte thing, I think that was great. The plot line of Diane in Cordovia, Wanda, J.D. Salinger. I love I love season 2.
Yeah. So season 2 is the better out of the two of them, but season 3 has got powerful
It's
episodes.
also got Slap My Salami. The guys are common. Because season 3 is the one finale I'd say that's like as big as the episode 11. Because obviously Sarah Lynn dies. That's not really a spoiler if you've been listening this far. In episode 11, and then episode 312 has to do this amazing thing where it has to make you not hate BoJack after essentially killing someone. So if you noticed in the episode, characters only ever consolidate BoJack and tell him it's not his fault, even though it is his fault. And he like, yeah, it does its absolute best to kind of keep you sympathetic to him somehow, even though you've just seen the previous episode where he's essentially done the worst thing he's ever done.
Yeah. Because, yeah, before watching, well, the final season, I never really thought too much about Bojack's responsibility in it. Because, like, yeah, I like, obviously he'd he'd done a bad at this point. Nothing that he'd done was good here, but I felt, yeah, more sympathy towards him rather than necessarily blaming him for anything. And then it's yeah, the stuff that season 6 then brings up and sort of kind of is like, yeah, why didn't you question some of this stuff?
Yeah, season 6 is very much about Sarah Lynn, I'd say. Like it starts with the immediate aftermath of episode 311, and you get that image of the night sky, which is in the opening. He kind of sees when he looks at the vodka, and obviously the second half revolves largely around Sarah Lynn. I'm kind of ashamed we didn't get a little bit more about her parents, because I think there's from the brief glimpses and like references to the relationship with her stepfather and mother, it's kind of, there's a lot of dark shit there that they kind of touch upon, and I guess they didn't want to absolve BoJack in any way. They didn't want to be like, oh yeah, it's not his fault, his parents were bad as well. But yeah, I could have done with a little bit more time in maybe the second half of the season talking about Sarah Lynn. Her song was good.
Yeah.
So what can you do?
Yeah. I just that episode 15, such a great idea for an episode.
I know. It's basically What Remains of Edith Finch meets Synecdoche, New York.
Yeah, I just love the details as well of just their meals.
Yeah, it's
how you've
like
pills for BoJack and the bottle of chlorinated water.
I'd forgotten how Herb died of a nut allergy.
Yeah.
The way he died was so like. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, because it's what's his name sort of going there, but then
isn't it Henry Winkler?
Yes, Henry Winkler. That's it. Just such an insensitive funeral reading. But...
it's one of like the darker jokes. I'm just like, okay, that is really funny. Well, okay, I completely forgot to mention. We haven't mentioned her yet. Actress Margot Martindale.
Oh. How have they managed to make such a brilliant thing of her?
I saw an interview with
Just
her, and I don't think she kind of gets it. Like she's never seen the show, but it's a great I love all the NPR jokes they do, but yeah, the writers really show off kind of how fucking indie they are with like the Margot Martindale stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Just like they tried to make it be an overarching plot with her at the end, sort of how this is, or like how she is also a victim of BoJack.
When she brought Todd that addictive video game. God, we've come a long way. All right, so the end of season 3, BoJack he runs away, and then as you mentioned, we have that great episode at the start of season 4 where you focus on Mr. Peanut Butter running for governor, for no reason.
Yeah, yeah.
And season 4, I think, I don't know, is it better than 5? I don't know. I jump back and forth, but this is the one that manages to it makes the entire season about BoJack's mother, in like a way without even making you kind of realize it is. You get that great second episode where it's the history of the house, which is one of the best episodes, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then you have her kind of living in the house with Hollyhock. The episode has shoots. I can't speak today. Stupid piece of shit. Which is it your favorite episode?
It's definitely up there. Yeah. It's just one of the best representations, I think, of depression and those sorts of mental illnesses in a TV show.
It's got such a sad ending as well. With Hollyhock
those voices that they go away.
And then I'm looking at the episode. The next 2 are the one where they're stuck underground, which is one of the stupidest episodes. The one where he's the judge on the booty contest, which is also one of the stupidest episodes. And then the next episode is Ruthie, which is maybe my favorite episode. I mean, you get the great payoff of Princess Carolyn naming her daughter Ruthie, but yeah.
Yeah. That got to me. Oh.
It's just the way they play with the narrative structure and the way, like, the fact that they can somehow the events of the episode are so horrible for her and everything is going wrong, but because you have the way it's being told is through this flashback, you are thinking throughout constantly like, oh, I'm glad in the end she's happy, in the end it's okay. And then you realize that was just her coping mechanism, and then it kind of pulls, I don't know, it pulls the string.
There is no safety net.
Yeah, and everything that's just happened in that episode just hits you at the end, and you're like, oh my god. Yeah. It's really. I mean, maybe I'm just dumb and other people saw it coming, but yeah, that one really hit me. As did the kind of ending of the season 4 with the reveal of Hollyhock and everything that's kind of presented about Beatrice and her history through Time's Arrow.
Yeah, that's a really powerful episode.
Like making you care about this character who's been so kind of hateful. And you've only ever seen her in a negative light, but all that they have to do is just kind of show you a few events of her life, and you immediately kind of see her in a different way. I love how they use the fuck in that season as well, because it's BoJack at the start of the season saying this is what he's going to do when she recognizes him, and then the moment where she recognizes him, he kind of comforts her.
Yeah, that is, I think, one of the most powerful moments in this show is just because he's been building up how at that moment when she recognizes him, that's when he's going to like stand up for himself finally, and then there's just the moment of it's the added detail of him knowing so much about her family. You sort of realize when he talks about Crackerjack playing the piano and things like that, it's sort of, do you realize how invested he actually was in his mother's life, and how even with all his hatred, he still gives her this one last moment.
Has BoJack also made you cry, John?
No.
Oh, nothing can.
I know it's.
Yeah, I think
But
the episode 15 of season 6 it did get to me. I think it's the first time the show's made me cry. But God, nothing has ever made you cry.
I mean, I get slightly teary when the wind is blowing into my eyes. So I think the tear ducts work.
God, maybe they need to make a season 7 and just like make it really sad. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean it's just kind of annoying at this point that I don't cry because it's like I want to. It sounds like I'm doing a weird boast. I don't want to be one of those people that is like, oh, nothing makes me cry. It's like, no, I want to cry.
It is a very strange character trait. But I don't know. Maybe you just haven't found that thing that hits you. Okay, season 5. Season 5. I don't know. This is when the show becomes so expansive. It basically becomes about the show, which I can see some people hating. But I loved the kind of whole season being about Bojack Horseman, and also just completely taking down like things like True Detective and all these kind of gritty shows with Big Flip, MacGyver. Yeah, I think the ongoing narrative of making Philbert might be my favorite kind of season arc almost, because every other season there's always like an ongoing kind of storyline of like what all the characters are somehow employed by like the same one thing. And I think Philbert might be my favorite.
Yeah. Just kind of reminds me a bit of how in American Vandal, how the documentary gets popular like halfway through.
Yeah.
It's the sort of turning around a bit, especially with, well, when right at the end, sort of Diane kind of turns around and sort of goes, no, that wasn't the point of the show. That wasn't why we wrote this.
Yeah, and the pushback from Bojack as well. I think that's episode 10, that one. And this has probably got in terms of quality, I think the 10, 11, and 12 are almost like, it's the one time where I think they're almost as good as each other.
Yeah, which has had the sort of knock-on effect that I feel like this was kind of the weakest penultimate episode in a way, just because it didn't stand out as much compared to the rest of the season.
Although that I do remember that 11 being great because of the opening title screen of Philbert you get, and the very final sequence, and the music that kind of plays as well. I think is always kind of stuck with me. And this season was really creative. Like they had that episode where every character was like a different animal. The one where it was 4 Halloween parties told out of order.
Yeah. Free churro.
Exact free churro. Which is it the best?
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I think it's widely considered. I mean, obviously, I think 615 might now be considered to be the best, but free churro is the one everyone talks about.
At the moment, 615 has got a 10-star rating on IMDb. Yeah, that's the problem with this show is I just keep on looking at all these powerful episodes and I'm like, oh, that's the best one. Oh no, wait, no, that's actually the best one.
I mean, it's so good how like they can just. It's like you never know with the late season Bojack Horseman what the episode you start is going to be because they can be so creative. And I think that's perhaps the weakest thing about season 6, which as like an overall thing I really do like. It's because it was slightly rushed and they had to fit almost 2 seasons into just over 1 season. They didn't have the space to kind of be as creative in how they were telling the story. But there were still creative episodes, but I feel like if we'd gotten the season 6 part 1, like an extra 5 episodes and had that as a season 6, and then had a year and then had a season 7, I'm sure we would have had some like incredibly kind of more creative ideas and ways of kind of delivering the same story. I'm sure we would have had a few more supporting characters too, because I love the random characters that you come along with each season. Like season 5 gave us Gina, didn't it? And
yeah. Because another thing that I feel got kind of rushed was, well, with just Diane's story as an extended thing is her like new boyfriend character and their son.
Yeah, because the very few scenes of that was, I mean, it was, I enjoyed watching it, but yeah, I feel like that fleshed out would have been a lot better.
Yeah, there's a whole implied story there that just yeah, we don't get to see, which is a shame.
Yeah, I get the kind of the idea that Bojack is the POV character, and we have that year time jump between 15 and 16 where it's kind of you can it kind of implies what's happened to Diane. She tells Bojack in what is
Hmm.
kind of to be their last ever conversation, um, before they kind of move on with their life, where she cuts him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do like how they kind of dealt with Diane almost. They had her
Hmm.
finally find the person who's kind of right for her, which sounds bad putting it like that, saying, "Oh, she just needs to find the right person." But no, she just found someone who could help her be her best her and support her and
Yeah.
kind of push her to make uncomfortable decisions, which in the long run have kind of helped her. Like she really didn't want to kind of go on antidepressants, but it's like it's made her kind of more her, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think this season was very good for kind of focusing on her because it's been a fault that some people have had with Diane's character from previous seasons is that she's much more just kind of an audience stand-in in a way that just sort of they sort of had to be careful really around season 5 because she was kind of becoming just a voice for the writers to say this wasn't what the show was about.
Yeah,
So I think it was very good that then with this final season they would sort of free Diane up from that a bit and was like, okay, yeah, no, she's her own character again, going through her life.
yeah, I totally agree with that. I think season 5 had the kind of really good episode where they kind of dealt with the fact that like they cast Alison Brie to play a Vietnamese American woman as well, which is kind of I don't know how much you know about the history of the show. That I'm trying to find the name of the actress who was originally going to voice Diane, but I can't, which kind of is bad of me. But yeah, she had to drop out, so they got Alison Brie in at the last minute. And then they currently were like, okay, so we have a Vietnamese American woman voiced by a white woman. We have a white guy called Todd Chavez. So I feel like, yeah, they definitely got better with their representation or kind of dealing with the fact that they basically had an all white cast right at the start.
Mm,
I mean, it could have been better from the start, but at least they kind of acknowledged it and not just in a lampshady way. Like I feel like the episode where Diane goes to Vietnam and like examines her own kind of identity is like a genuine like critique and examination of like the show itself and the way that that character kind of struggles because of her background.
yeah.
And season 6, I mean, with the fact that season 6 brought back her dad in that episode where she's trying to write about her trauma, her dad who was turned into chum and then thrown at Derek Jeter, back in season 1, it just goes to show you how far it's come. Like I'd forgotten about the Derek Jeter thing until I saw her dad and was like, oh my god. This character's just like how little of her we've actually seen. It's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, because we did basically just have that one episode from the first season.
Yeah, and that was almost like tonally it was very different.
Yeah, yeah.
So, good overall, would you say? Good show.
Yeah. It's a good show. Good show.
We never got to see Vincent Adultman come back.
Mm.
That would have been good. Just a random thought I had. I just saw a picture of him.
I mean, it seems like the sort of thing. I'm sure if I watch the final episode again, there'll just be
He'll be at the wedding.
Vincent Adultman looking older. Yeah.
Some of the people at that wedding were like deep cuts. Like very minor characters from like episodes from like season 2 and 3. Where I'm like, if I had not rewatched the show, I would not recognize this person.
I feel like it's also implied that, well, I mean, it's implied that Erica is there.
Oh, I didn't see Eric. Wait.
Well, no, you
Oh
don't
yeah, you don't see Eric
just because it's
he goes.
It's just peanut butter going. Oh, I'll always be by your side unless.
That was a great cut.
All
right.
Yeah.
Should we wrap this up then?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So watch BoJack Horseman. Although if you're listening to this and you haven't seen the show,
It's
what the fuck you do?
probably a bit late.
All right. That's all I've got to say. Johnny, got anything else to say?
Um, I really want to see more from both the writers behind it and also the animators behind it.
Yeah,
I
Raphael Bob
really hoped
Waxberg,
that
Lisa Hannah, well
yeah.
done. Hundreds of other writers and animators and people whose names I don't know because that's how the creative process works for some reason. Well done. You've made one of the best, if not the best, show. Ebbs.
Mhm.